Hello once again, folks, and happy Valentine's Day. I did promise that this second part would be out today. I don't know how much time I'm going to have though, because I helped my mum make a stew earlier, and normally around now is when we start eating it, so I'm going to get through this as quick as I can. This is part 2 of my Converge episode of Backtracking. I hope you like part 1, so we're going to keep it rolling with part 2, continuing right along with their 5th album, You Fail Me. There's a lot of changes for this album. One thing is the addition of more traditional hardcore elements. The fact that it's their shortest album at just around 35.5 minutes, and it's the band's first release on Epitaph, which is basically their home from this point on. It's also the album that probably got the band more attention, landing them a spot on the Billboard 200. And also, love alsos, I dare say that's possibly the most successful album. A lot of critics give that to X4, but I just feel like it fits You Found Me a bit more. It's definitely something that new fans at the time of the new fans of the band at the time could listen to and get into them, whilst not disappointing hardcore listeners with how much the production value had skyrocketed by this point. Speaking of the production, it's once again handled by the band's own Kurt Ballou, as well as a person named Alan Douches. And no, it's not a dude who gives himself douches. His surname is Douches with a capital D. Sort of unfortunate. Anyway, the concept of the album, it's somewhat linked to Jane Doe in that the answers that Bannon was hoping to find on the bad album never came to him when he was writing for it, and he felt like he failed. And with that realization, he knows that everyone fails everyone at some point. I know I've done it. Despite its high production value, the lyrics mostly focus on the negative feeling of having failed someone or let them down. It's weird that what might be the band's easiest album to listen to musically is possibly the most depressing lyrically if you think about it. Jacob Bannon is just a mad genius that way. He conveys that negative emotion of failure brilliantly without sounding too whining, much like he did with Jane Doe's concept of a bad relationship falling out. Anyway, whilst Newton and Cola Avocados at Law, Daredevil reference, first appeared on Jane Doe, You Found Me was the first album to have the band's now signature foursome lineup of Newton, Cola, Ballou, and of course Bannon himself. The band does not lose any of its rawness, and the production only seems to help elevate their sound. Kurt's riffs sound great. Jacob gets the chance to shine with more clean singing and screaming that's easy to comprehend. Nate's bass's work is some of the best I've heard from a bassist, to be honest, and Ben's drumming is pretty much always fantastic. Standard songs, I said sounds over in the scripts, but I'll change that to songs, include Heartless, the title track, The Great Closer and Hanging Moon, Eagles Become Vultures, and my favourite in Our Shadow, which has a perfect balance of the band's cleaner work and the brain-breaking technicality that they can still display. It's pretty easy to listen to You Fail Me, so I do recommend that you do it. It's a good choice to start here if you're just now getting into heavier hardcore and metal music and need to ease into it. It's especially a good choice if you want to start listening to Converge. Trust me. We now reach their 6th album, No Heroes, released in 2006. Once again through Epitaph, the album is unique in terms of production, as it's the band's first album to be produced solely by guitarist Kurt Ballou. Also, I forgot to mention in part 1, well no, I didn't forget to mention in part 1. I did mention it in part 1. I wrote here that I forgot to mention in part 1, but I changed it when I did the video, even though that wasn't scripted, but moving on. Yeah, Kurt Ballou owns God Seed Studios, where most of Converge's music has been made, so there you go. Anyway, back to the album itself. The concept is, well, the band says that there ultimately is no concept for this album. But then again, before saying that, they did post online about how cowardice and complacency was rewarded, whereas heroism and sacrifice isn't. So that's the version that I'm going to be sticking with for this album, because that just sounds cooler. Also speaking of the album, it's kind of, yeah. Don't get me wrong, it does have its good moments. But the album unfortunately winds up sounding as confusing as their debut did, even to the point where the first 5 songs are shorter than 2 minutes long, with one of those being under 1 minute. I'm not making that up. It's not hyperbole, seriously, they're that short. The band could have easily compiled all of that into one song, around about 5 minutes long. I would have accepted that, but they just chose not to, resulting in what could have been a great opener to a series of disconnected sounding messages and songs that just get a bit messy. Also, the album is possibly their cleanest work yet, but it's not as accessible or easy to listen to as You Fail Me was. Which is a shame, because with such a great concept, the band could have done a lot better with No Heroes. I don't fully hate the album, and it's not even my least favourite, but it's probably in the bottom 2, which isn't saying much. Jacob's screams sound too average, like they're nothing I haven't heard before. His clean vocal range has never been clearer though, and that did impress me. He's always expanding on his clean vocals, which is nice. But Converge are a band that benefit from the chaos of themselves and of their own sound, and there's almost none of that on this album. Kurt's riffs are perfectly fine, as is nice bass and bass drumming, and Bannon's lyrics aren't an issue at all. neither is the voice. But the album just feels like a big step down from how awesome Jane Doe was and how good You Found Me was, despite the label change and fan criticism. I personally liked You Found Me quite a bit. I do have songs that I liked though, so let's go over those. Lone Wolves, which is a really good song, the title track, Grim Heart Black Rose, the closer Into the Lions, and my favourite in Trophy Scars. One, because the title is the name of my favourite person in the whole wide world, shout out for her, and two, because it's a greatly balanced track on an otherwise overly produced and too well structured album. No Heroes is the album that I have the most mixed feelings towards, and while I can recommend it to some just getting into them, I'd recommend You Found Me more for that. If you want to listen to No Heroes though, I won't stop you. I personally wouldn't recommend listening to it more than once. It's basically a better produced version of Halo and Haystack, slightly better. Sorry. Next is the band's seventh album, Axe to Fall, released in 2009. Epitaph be the home, and Baloo be the dude behind the booth, and the album is pretty damn awesome indeed. It actually feels like a sequel to Jane Doe in some ways. Despite the fact that Axe to Fall is no concept of its own, the lyrics are just based on what happened between the release of this and No Heroes. Even though it doesn't have a concept, the album is a lot of fun to listen to. Also, there is a hell of a lot of guest musicians and songwriters on the album, and this video would take way too long to name all of them, so I'll keep it brief. Former bassist Stephen Borowski co-penned the track Effigy, as well as performing lead guitar for that song. Steve Ontill of Neurosis sings lead vocals on the track called Bloom, and Mookie Singerman of Genghis Tron, awesome name for both the person and the band by the way, sings on the final track Wretched World. Now, a lot of critics claim that Axe to Fall is the band's most accessible album, which I mentioned earlier. I don't disagree, and I do still give that to You Found Me just slightly. I will agree with critics that Axe to Fall is Converge's most energetic output. There's just this bigger air of positive energy to things, and it makes for a more fast-paced and really fun listen. I can see the comparisons to Jane Doe as well. The cover art, handled as always by Jacob Bannon, is eerily similar to Jane Doe's cover art, with a similar-looking woman appearing, albeit in Axe to Fall's case she's seen from a side view, and there's 3 copies of her, 2 of which show a bit of her teeth in some X-ray weird fashion. As in Jane Doe, she's looking like sort of straightforward and a little bit upwards. It's oddly gruesome, the art for Axe to Fall, but hell, it looks really nice. Even with all the guest musicians and Rose involved, there's no doubt that the band had put a lot of effort into it. It honestly feels just very nice and very organic, and it feels like a great progression of their sound. Like, this is the album that should have come out after You Found Me did, you know? That's just what I think, anyway. Not that No Heroes was all bad, but in terms of how the band was progressing at the time with how well Jane Doe elevated the genre of hardcore punk and mathcore mashed together, and elevated the Converge to being who they are, Axe to Fall should have been the next one after You Found Me, that's all I'm saying. Oh, and obviously the band members themselves. Great vocals and lyrics from Bannon, Russo Days from Baloo, Bass Be Furious from Newton, and college drumming it's college drumming, it's pretty much always fantastic. Standout songs include Damages, Wishing Well, Deadbeat, the title track, The Brilliant Closer in Wretched World, and my favourite amongst them is Worms Will Feed, Rest Will Feast. Axe to Fall is a fantastic album by the band, and it's easily on par with some of their best work. I can definitely recommend that you give it a listen, so do that whenever you can. And finally, we reach the band's most recent album, All We Love Will Leave Behind, released in 2012. That is mental to think of. It seems weird to call it most recent when it came out nearly 5 years ago now, but with the band working on new stuff this year and possibly releasing it, who knows? Pardon me. Anyway, much like Axe to Fall is a great sequel to Jane Doe, so is All We Love to Axe to Fall. It's another great example of the band's progression as musicians, and you can hear them improving as musicians and songwriters on this album. Whilst it doesn't have a central concept, Bannon's vocals are definitely the easiest to decipher on this album. Trust me, he's a lot easier to listen to, both in terms of his screams and his clean singing. Kurt Ballard does a great job on production, probably the best he's done, in my opinion, and the band themselves just feels more organic than Axe to Fall did, possibly due to writing all the songs themselves this time instead of having a whole crap ton of guest musicians helping out like on Axe to Fall. I have to agree, there's no weird distortion techniques on any machinery to enhance Jacob's vocals, and he sounds more natural than ever on this album, as does every other member. But we'll get to that when we get to it. As I mentioned in the intro part 1, All We Love was the only album that I'd ever listened to before starting over for Converge for this episode. In all honesty, it's a really good leaving off point, I think. As I mentioned in the intro part 1, All We Love was the only album that I'd ever listened to before going, oh, sorry, I accidentally reread another part. It's got a lot of accessibility with it being more of a straight-up metalcore album with some hardcore punk shouts thrown in. but almost with no mathematical elements whatsoever, making everything sound much more structured that way, but not as overstructured as No Heroes was. Even though this did warrant a mixed review from NME, I'm not going to count that because NME is the hipster douchebag of music magazines. I've just never liked them. I just don't. Anyway, back to the band. The album sound is just really, really awesome. The production is stepped up hugely as well. Whilst it was good next to fall, there was room for improvement there, and Kurt stepped up to the plate and knocked it out of the park in the case of What We Love. Speaking of Kurt, his riffs sound fantastic, and his guitar work is also fantastic, which leads with lovely leads and chugs in the fast-paced and energetic breakdowns, as are the bread and butter of Converge, which I forgot to mention. So sorry. Sorry about that. Nate Space also chugs along quite nicely, providing a good groove, and Ben's drumming is pretty much always awesome. There's such a technicality to it that I just can't deny it's so good. Oh, and Jackie's vocals have improved dramatically, also as of his lyrics, once more about personal love, death, faith, religion, relationships, and other stuff going on in his personal life. Standout songs include Trespasses, Glacial Place, which is just fun to say, Sadness Comes Down with the title track, The Great Clouds and Predatory Glow, and my favourite in the sombre and epic feeling, Coral Blue. Basically, listen to All We Love We Leave Behind. It's a culmination of the band's work up until this point, and it's really easy to listen to and enjoy, so give it a go and see for yourself. And so that's it for this episode. It was another fun one to write. My favourite album was clearly Jane Doe. It was just such a huge game changer for the band and for the genre, and stands as their most iconic album right down to the cover art. It's just so good, so damn good. Least favourite was probably Halo and Haystack, sorry for picking my nose. Whilst I wasn't a fan of No Heroes, at least I could follow that easier and knew what was going on. Halo ended up being an often incoherent mess from time to time for me, and it just confused the hell out of me as a result. I don't want to be confused. I'm already confused enough day to day, why would I want a band to help? Anyway, the next episode will take some time, honestly, as I don't have a band in mind, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm thinking maybe Senses Fail, but I don't know. When I do think of a band, I'll let you know in my next video, which probably might be in my next UFC review this weekend if they're doing one. Maybe I'm gonna have a quick look up. This is the bonus content you paid absolutely nothing for. Yeah, February 19th. Okay, so yeah, I might have a band by then, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, when I do find something, I'll tell you. Until then, take care and thanks for watching and for listening. I'll see you in the next one.